Have you ever felt like your job is slowly draining the life out of you? Like you're trapped in a cycle of endless tasks where passion turns to resentment and every Monday feels like a battle? Welcome to the shadowy realm of burnout, a silent predator in the modern workplace. But what if I told you that dark psychology, those cunning mental tricks we often associate with manipulation, could be your secret weapon to reclaim control? Not to harm others, but to outsmart your own mind. In this video, we'll dive deep into burnout at work, what it is, how to fight it using psychological maneuvers, the dire consequences if you ignore it, how to conquer that deep-seated reluctance to blend work and life, and ultimately, how to fall in love with your job and the world around you. Buckle up. This isn't your typical self-help fluff. It's a psychological playbook with real-life examples, timeless quotes, and film insights to arm you against the darkness. Burnout is not just tiredness. It's a psychological erosion of meaning. Dark manipulators thrive on that erosion. When you are exhausted, you resist less. When you doubt yourself, you obey more. It becomes a cycle. They drain you, and your exhaustion feeds their control. A well-known psychologist once said something like, "People don't trap you. You trap yourself by believing you owe them your energy." This idea captures the invisible bond between manipulators and their targets. You are not just overworked. You are psychologically entangled. And once that entanglement begins, your inner world becomes foggy. You forget where your decisions end and where someone else's influence begins. To understand this dynamic, let's look at a real-life example. There was a young accountant named Daniel. On paper, he was efficient, polite, disciplined, but his supervisor had mastered the art of emotional manipulation. She praised him only after draining him. She created crises only he could fix. She made him feel responsible for the entire department's success. Within a year, Daniel stopped noticing how often he skipped lunch, how rarely he slept properly, and how deeply he feared disappointing her. Burnout became his new personality, and yet he still believed he was valuable because the manipulator taught him that exhaustion was a form of loyalty. It took a single sentence from a colleague, "You're working like you owe her your life," for Daniel to finally see the invisible chain around his mind. Manipulators often rely on three psychological strategies. 1. Isolation, making you feel like you're the only one who can solve a specific task. 2. Gaslighting, distorting your memory or making you question your perceptions. 3. Emotional debt, convincing you that you owe them effort, silence, or sacrifice. These tactics don't just control your actions, they reshape your identity. They turn your workplace into a psychological maze where every exit seems to loop back to the same starting point. Burnout is not the end result. It is only the preface. If you do nothing, consequences multiply. Anxiety grows, creativity collapses, and personal relationships weaken. You begin carrying the workplace shadows home. A scene from a well-known film illustrates this perfectly. A character who works in a sterile office realizes that every day feels like a loop of lost identity. He doesn't hear insults, yet feels attacked. Doesn't see chains, yet feels trapped. He eventually understands that the prison was built not of walls, but of psychological expectations. That's exactly how workplace manipulation functions. It doesn't need threats, it simply needs your silence. And the more silent you are, the faster burnout spreads like a slow, invisible fire. So how do you break this cycle? Step 1. Recognize emotional triggers. Notice who drains your energy the most, who confuses you, who makes you feel guilty for resting. Manipulators survive by targeting your psychological weak points. Step 2. Rebuild personal boundaries. This doesn't mean confrontation. It means redefining what you allow into your emotional space. Sometimes the most powerful boundary is a calm, emotionless no, delivered without explanation. Step 3. Shift from emotional reaction to strategic thinking. Manipulators expect emotional responses: guilt, fear, urgency. When you respond calmly and logically, you interrupt their pattern. Darkness survives in chaos, not in clarity. There's a line from a popular song that speaks about breaking free from someone who feeds on your silence. Again, not quoting, but the idea is powerful. Manipulators cannot survive without your quiet compliance. When you reclaim your voice, even in small decisions, you starve the manipulation. Burnout begins to fade the moment you stop accepting emotional debt. It's not easy, but it is possible. And the moment you step back mentally, you will suddenly see the workplace from a new angle, almost as if the room has been living in shadows and someone finally lit a lamp. But let's be clear, ignoring manipulation has consequences. If you don't act, burnout transforms into chronic emotional numbness. Anxiety becomes part of your daily routine. Self-confidence dissolves, and you begin believing you are only valuable when exhausted. This is the most dangerous form of psychological decay, when you stop recognizing your own worth. Dark psychology is not about attacking someone. It is about understanding the hidden strategies people use, so you can counter them with awareness, insight, and control. Another principle from behavioral psychology states that those who master their inner world cannot be controlled by the outer one. When you rebuild your self-worth, manipulators lose leverage. Here is how to reclaim yourself. Document manipulation patterns. Writing makes them visible. Reduce reactive communication. Avoid responding emotionally. Seek allies. Manipulation thrives in secrecy. Restore life outside work. Joy makes you harder to control. Prioritize rest. Burnout is not weakness. It's a warning signal. The mystical part of the human mind awakens when you protect your energy. You begin sensing manipulation before it even happens, like seeing a shadow move before the figure enters the room. And finally, you must understand this. Manipulators do not fear authority, logic, or rules. They fear awareness. A person who sees the mechanics behind manipulation becomes psychologically untouchable. their burnout begins to heal, their identity returns, and the shadows of the workplace no longer feel like predators. When you recognize manipulation, you don't just protect your job. You protect your mind, your peace, and the story of who you are becoming. This is your path out of burnout. This is your shield against psychological pressure. This is how you reclaim your power.